Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan here again today with you on this channel with another video on astrology, human design, and the gene keys. And today we're going to be looking at gene key and human design gate 43, which is in correspondence to the zodiac degrees of Scorpio from 1852 to 2430 degrees of Scorpio. And so this is another vote that you guys out there participated in. Thank you very much for voting for the 4323 programming partner. And I've decided to do the 43 before the 23. The 23 is the Taurus archetype because of the way that it is structured in human design and how the 43 is located in the ajna and the 23 is in the throat. So the ideas from the ajna comes first before it's transferred to the throat. So I just feel like it would make more sense to do the 43 before the 23. So if you haven't watched the introduction video to this series, I highly recommend that you check out the introduction video first. So I'll post a link up there and in the description box below so you can get a more comprehensive understanding of where I'm coming from with this whole series. Then you can come back and watch this video. This archetype moves from the shadow of deafness to the gift of insight and the city highest destiny called Epiphany. The star and the magi. And the gift of insight is actually called the creative rebel. Okay, and so the dream arc vision key bird totem is of course the Sparrowhawk. At the fear level is the electric eel. And the life key animal at the gift level is the moose. In the 64 hexagrams of the I-Ching, this archetype is lake over heaven. It's called breakthrough. Trust in the enthusiasm of life to reveal the creative light. In the 64 genetic codon, this codon is part of the ring of destiny. It's associated with the amino acid asparagine. The programming partner of this archetype is Human Design and Gene Keys Gate 23. That's in association with the Zodiac Degrees of Taurus from 1852 to 2430 degrees of Taurus. And the programming partner offers a balancing point, a complementary opposite to the different archetypes. And a lot of you guys are asking about programming partners and what that means, and I may make a video on that, more on that in the future for you guys. In Human Design, this particular archetype is part of the channel 2343 called the channel of structuring or knowing. This particular gate is located in the ajna. And of course, because I just recently got this beautiful human design card deck from Ceremonians, I'm going to show you the visual, the picture on the card for the channel 2343. That's kind of what it looks like. Absolutely beautiful. I love it. So I have this archetype myself as my conscious earth. Yes, it's part of my incarnation cross. My sun is in gate 23, so my sun is the programming partner of the 43, and the 43 is therefore, the 2343 is really like what I'm operating on a lot in my life. So I would be very excited to talk about this today and maybe even share some of my personal experiences with you guys. Okay, so let's talk about the vision key bird of this archetype first. So the Sparrowhawk. So the thing that makes a Sparrowhawk quite fascinating is the fact that this bird hunts by surprise. And they sometimes, well, they frequently crash into windows accidentally when they're pursuing their prey, because they are, and usually with fatal results, because they are moving very fast and very quickly, and they can be kind of, shall we say, deaf to their surroundings when they are having a target that they want to go for. Sparrowhawks are the specialist hunter of birds. That's the other fascinating thing about this animal is it's a bird that eats birds. More than 120 species of bird have been recorded as prey to the sparrowhawk. And many of their victims are eaten, plucked, and eaten while still alive as well. And the female sparrowhawks are typically larger than the males, 25% larger and twice as heavy. So because of the size difference, sometimes when the males are pursuing the female has an ability to actually kill her suitor in the process. They have a special ability for precision flying. They can fly really fast in between branches and like really small spaces, like really low on the ground and not crash onto the ground, or like in spaces between fences. They generally take off flying by leaping like a burst, leaping with a burst from its initial position. And it's really funny that the sparrowhawk misses a lot of the times when it's hunting. Only about 1 in 10 attacks will actually result in them capturing their target prey. They are known for their maneuverability, speed, strategy, and of course killing efficiency. And there's also a really fascinating kind of like study into the anatomy of the sparrowhawk. If you guys are interested to know more about it, if you like birds, if you're interested in the makeup of this bird's anatomy, I'll post a link in the description box below, and you know, this website talks about the feathers of the sparrowhawk and how it's made up and all that juicy stuff. If you have this archetype, some of the traits that you may have are going to be, I wouldn't really say loving, but just kind of like naturally drawn to danger situations sometimes in your life, or not afraid to take certain risk because you are very much in the pursuit of a particular goal. I'm going to read you a quote by Michael J. Sego about the sparrowhawks. He says, "In full pursuit, the sparrowhawk can be extremely persistent, often getting into difficulties. It will blindly chase after its terrified quarry into a room, crash to death against a window, strike wires, or become fatally wounded after crashing into a thick hedge or bush." And so, you know, Richard Rudd calls this archetype the creative rebel. So there's that element there where if you're working with this archetype, like at a higher frequency of it, you are very much an individual, and you have some kind of rebellion going on in your life. Maybe it's subtle, maybe it's an overt kind of rebellion, but whatever that is, you are willing to die for this cause that you are promoting or fighting for or rebelling for. Another way of looking at this is that you have when you have an intention for something, you can really be efficient in your strategies. You can have stunning, efficient strategies for what you want to get out of life, just like the sparrowhawk. That it's fascinating to watch it take this risk of diving very close to the ground or trying to fly through, you know, the hole in a fence because it so much wants to eat its prey. The intention is right there. Whether this is happening consciously or unconsciously. Another quality of yours, if you have this archetype, is that you may be very difficult to teach because you only listen to your inner voice and your own truth, and that there's great power in that because you can bring something new into the world. That's what a creative rebel is here to do, here to bring in a new insight, a new way of looking at the world, understanding the world. And so the coping mechanism for that is going to be, whether consciously or unconsciously, kind of protect yourself from the influences of teachers and teachings outside of yourself that may not resonate with your own inner truth. And when you do think, and one of the most rebellious things that this particular archetype brings to the world, if you have it, is efficiency. When we look at how complicated the world has become, we can see that in the world today, how busy people are, they're in a hustle mode, how complicated the world has become. One of the most rebellious things to actually do and be is to be simple, is to be efficient, is to get rid of your clutter, and be quite shocking or surprising in the way that you may do that. So now let's have a look at the shadow frequency of this archetype, which is called deafness. Okay, and so deafness, according to the gene keys, means that you don't hear your inner voice. You don't hear your inner truth because you are listening to the white noise of the society, of your environment, of your family, your friends, and the way that they are maybe saying things to you or doing things to you that you know, like you just know inside of you that it's not really you, and it's not efficient, and it's not it's not efficient. This shadow of deafness and not being able to listen to your own inner voice is actually rooted in a deeper fear of not surviving. So you would rather listen to what is known to have proven results rather than stepping into the unknown. For example, what kind of career should you have? How should you make money? Your money is survival. We need money to survive, right? You may listen to what the mainstream society considers as a safe way of making money, even though you may know deep down, there's a voice inside of you that says, no, this is not you, this is not what you should do, but you don't listen to that. You just follow what the mainstream is doing, is saying, because it's been proven that it works, it really helps to survive, it's safe, it's known. So your biggest enemy here, actually, we can say, is knowing something. To know something that brings you safety, to feel safety because you're doing something that you know, is actually one of your shadows. So because there's a subacoustic aura of humanity, in our environment, these can be in terms of like phrases, sentences, like paradigms, languages. Yes, the hidden words and the meanings of words that are inside languages that we really feel like that's exactly what it means, if that kind of makes sense to you. Like, if I say the word to you, deaf, for example, the shadow, right, deaf, there's a mainstream way of understanding deaf, but what deaf really means to you as a person can be different from another person. Words are constructs that, we've created ourselves, and there's no truth. I mean, there's truth at a certain level. That's not 100% truth in the things that we create in the world, like language and words. And when we're talking about this archetype in human design, this is associated, the gate 43, with the inner ear. And so when we're talking about hearing, we actually mean that when deafness happens, you really can't hear voices in your head. And this is so funny because, this is me, this is how I am as well, that when I'm alone, for example, it's like there's these, if you have this archetype, you may totally relate with this, is that there's just words and sentences and things that want to come out of me, and maybe for you guys as well, that like for a really large part of my life, because this is my conscious earth, and in the gene keys, the earth is your evolution, is your biggest challenge. And for 30 years of my life, I never listen. I barely ever listen to these voices that keep going on in my head. And my life got pretty complicated. It's there, it's very subtle, but notice if when you're alone, for example, there's phrases that keeps coming up that you're just kind of like, oh, that's great, put it away. Yeah, sure, put it away. And you never say it, you never do anything about it, you never, express it out. That is the deafness here. And these phrases or sentences, they can appear in your head like they come so fast, like in a millisecond, like it takes a lot of awareness to be able to catch it, kind of like Sparrowhawk that catches his prey like that. But you can catch it. But if it becomes a habit for you to dismiss it, then it's going to take a habit reformation before you can actually catch it. That kind of makes sense? And yes, the fears of hearing your own inner truth may lead to change, dramatic changes in your life. It may lead to instability, which always comes with change. And, the Scorpio archetype is really much, Pluto, the 8th house Scorpio, really craves for change and transformation, but also fears it deeply as well because it is a stubborn sign, it's a fixed sign. And so there's this like constant push and pull there, and that's how this plays out in this particular archetype of Gene Key and Human Design Gate 43. And if we dig deeper into this fear, the thing about change and doing something, like stepping into the unknown, for example, if you were to be your true authentic self, you may have to change your job and follow something that, you know, may be, let's say, taboo or on the fringe of society. You may have to leave a current relationship and pursue something else, for example. These dramatic changes, these transformative changes brings in the deeper fear of rejection, that you would be an outcast, that you would have no friends, that your family may reject you, that there's something there where the 43, the archetype of 43, is the epitome of the fear of rejection at the shadow frequency. What ends up happening when you are not listening to your inner voice is that you begin to worry a lot. Because now, not only do you have an inner voice inside of you, you also have this conflict between your inner voice and the external voice that you're taking in, that you're not tuning. And so you begin to worry about survival, how to make money, how to make a particular relationship work, how to take care of your health. You keep searching for ways of solving these problems, for happiness, sometimes how to control certain situations in life, rather than changing it completely or transforming it completely. And so therefore it's going to create more worries. So, or the other way the shadow can play out is by over talking. So because you may have deeper fears that if you don't share certain insights that you have inside of you, your own inner truth, that people, if you stay quiet, you feel that, oh, people will reject you because you're not saying anything. But then again, because you're talking to overcompensate for a fear of rejection, what you do end up getting is actually rejection, because you can be talking from a place of fear. Your voice will, your voice may shake, your words may get jumbled up, it may be disorganized, you may talk way too much at the wrong time, provide too much information when people are not ready, you may talk like an essay, you may use words that are way too complicated. Any of these things can lead people to feel like this person is speaking out of fear and they don't really know what to do with that. And so although they may not consciously want to reject you, but they may maybe not ask you again for your insights, for example, or not really feeling like they want to engage in another conversation. So how can we turn the shadow of deafness into the gift of insight? Okay, so you have an ability, if you fully embrace your shadow of deafness, you can ride it like you're riding a dragon, like you're riding your deepest shadow. You're becoming friends with your deepest shadow rather than trying to fight it off. And when you become friends with deafness, you can make deafness your ally, and you can use it to be deaf to the outer white noise of the environment, rather than being deaf to your own inner truth. When you could tune out the white noise of other people in the environment just a little bit, and the way to do this is that when you hear something, a teacher, for example, trying to teach you something, or like maybe it's your friends or your family giving you ideas, you can definitely listen to it. But when you do, it's important to filter which of that resonates with your own truth or not. And in order to do that, you have to get into a space of not knowing first. So that you can receive other people's, opinions and ideas, this white noise that's coming in, and be objective to it. Because if you already identified with what you know and what you don't know, the moment that another person gives you an insight, you'll say, oh, well, I didn't know this, so I'm going to believe it. Or you will say, oh, I already know this, so I'm going to totally reject that. And neither one of those will lead to your actual truth, because the creative rebel, the word rebel, right? It means you have to go against something. But the creative rebel doesn't go against A and doesn't go against B, but carves a new path, the path of F, for example. That's why it's called the creative rebel. It doesn't have to go against anything, but is centered in its own knowing and its own truth. So when you are really relaxed, like when you're taking a shower or right before you fall asleep, and I can testify for this, like when I'm in the shower, I keep getting all these ideas about like what I want to say on my YouTube videos, you know, insights about astrology and gene keys and all that kind of stuff. It's like it's all coming when I'm in the shower. So I love my showers. I take really long showers, by the way. So yes, you have to be in a really relaxed state in your mind to be able to receive and hear your inner truth. Because when you're not, where there's no noise to fight the acoustics of your inner truth, then you can fully hear it. How can you know that the voices you're hearing are actually your inner truth, rather than it being like repeated phrases, mantras, or paradigms that are from the outside? You know that it's your own voice rather than external voice when there's an infusion of creativity. There's some kind of spark of creativity mixed with risk and danger, that when you feel like, if I were to really share this with the world, it's a little bit dangerous, but yet you're excited about it. That's when you know that that's your own voice and not somebody else's voice. You just know it. When you feel like, now I really have to trust the unknown. I really have to take this risk to share this, and I have absolutely no idea how people are going to respond to it. When all you really have inside of you at this point is trust, that is when you know it's your inner voice. And there's a lot of empowerment and a lot of faith and trust that goes into this particular archetype. And the trust is supported by the fact that you feel like this particular voice that you're hearing, this insight that you're hearing, can help the world, can make a contribution by making people's lives more efficient. So it's a combination of trust, risk, creativity, but also contribution by making people's lives more effective. That's how you know that is your own voice and not somebody else's voice. This is what Richard Rudd wrote in the Gene Keys book for this archetype. He says, "This is the first law of the rebel, to trust in your inner voice no matter what the consequences. This is the true meaning of the gift of insight." So yes, it's I think I'm getting a little emotional. It's very empowering. Like, you really have to empower yourself, and that's the power. I mean, Scorpio, Pluto, it's about inner power, right? And your inner power, it doesn't come from you saying something and people believe it, you sharing what you know. Your inner power is going to come from the trust. If you can really trust yourself to share your inner voice to other people, and you actually do it, that is real power. It doesn't matter how people are going to receive it. It doesn't matter if they approve it or not, if you are rejected or not. Who cares? That does not matter. All it matters is you trust it and you share it. The secret of insight is also with timing. So you'd never really quite know when it's going to drop. And of course, if you're in the shower, for example, or you're in a state of full relaxation, that will help to make it drop, but there's no guarantee that it will drop. So the key here is patience as well. Or if you have the 24-61 channel. So the 61's in the crown, the 24's in the top of the ajna, the 43's below that. This whole circuitry like feeds into each other. Insights come in through inspiration from the 61. It gets rationalized by the 24. It drops into the 43. So if you have some of these gates, it may make it more active for you to get the drops of insight. What the 24 does is that it tells you that you can't fully trust a particular system. And so it works like the logic of deduction. That's what 24 does. So when it receives, like let's say it receives 100 data or advice, what the gate 24 will do is it will say, this data is not, I'm going to deduct it because it doesn't make sense for this particular situation. This data doesn't make sense. This data makes sense. This data makes sense. And then it selects only a few in which the 43, gate 43, adds a touch of its own creativity into that. It carves its own, and in the way that it adds its creativity, it makes it into a new path. And that's when the creative insights drops into the 43, if that kind of made sense. So it's like, it's not that it's coming from nowhere, it is coming from somewhere, and it's usually the 61, which is a divine source. Timing can also be enhanced through love. If you send out a frequency into the universe of trust and love, that you love your voice, that you trust your own insights, the universe may be able to help with regards to the law of attraction and pull the insights to you faster. But, because we're living in this time and space dimension, it's not going to be fast enough for you, and you still have to have patience and then trust when it does drop. Okay, so if we turn this archetype up a notch to the city or the highest destiny level, we're going to get to the city of the destiny of Epiphany. So Epiphany is derived from the Greek word meaning inner manifestation, the manifestation of a divine being. And Buddha, the Buddha is an example of somebody who has reached a state of enlightenment, right? And when he reached his enlightenment or his epiphany, he realizes that what he was just an ordinary man. And therefore, his need to seek and to know ends altogether. When you reach enlightenment, the knowing ceases, but it doesn't mean that you know everything. It means that you don't know anymore. And so this archetype is really about not knowing and trusting the unknown. And it's called the star and the magi because, in the biblical stories, the magi is sometimes called an astrologers. Well, they are the 3 astrologers. They read the stars. And you can probably read the story online, but basically they heard of baby Jesus was going to be born, and they were following the North Star to see him, and they brought 3 gifts, and they brought gifts to baby Jesus, but they didn't quite know where the Northern Star would take them at first, but they could sense that there was something important about the Northern Star, and they had to just follow it. The star here can be seen as a symbol of fate, or the movement of the spheres that lies beyond our human ability to grasp, to know, or to understand. And the Magi's and their gifts are a symbol of the different levels of ourself. And the figure of Christ is a symbol of the divine. And so we can see how the self trust in fate, trust in the unknowns of fate and things beyond ourselves and the mysteries of the world, which leads us to the divine. So this is the path of epiphany. It has to come from the not knowing. It has to come from full trust in the not knowing, which fate has a way of working that we can't quite describe. And if you have this archetype, the moment that you are operating, at the state of insight or epiphany, things begin to happen in your life that you can't quite explain. But it's because you've empowered yourself to have so much trust. I actually had a really interesting conversation with my group of friends the other day, like my university friends, and they were asking me Tam, what is your plan for your astrology business? How do you see it working out in the future? What's your strategy? What are you trying to do with it? How are you, getting success? And I said, I don't know, but I trust. That's exactly what I said to them. And, that was before I made this video. I said, I just have faith that things are going to work out. And they do. I just trust it. So yeah, I'm really feeling this archetype so strongly in my life, guys. It's like saying that I don't know can be one of the most useful and even the wisest thing that we can say is that we don't know. When you follow the not knowing, surprises happen in your life, and you begin to see beyond cultures, beyond boundaries that we've created in the world, beyond the countries that we have, and you begin to say whatever you want, do whatever you want, without worrying too much about its accuracy, or even like, if I say something, it will sound irresponsible. The divine is never irresponsible. There's a purpose for, if you have this archetype, everything that you say. It may not be received in the way that you had hoped, it may not be accurate, but whatever people take from your insight, from your epiphanies, it is useful for them at the moment that they needed it. The stars have brought you together in fate with that other person who wants to receive your insights, and it doesn't matter what you say. They're ready. When the stars bring you together, they're ready, and they'll receive it in the way that is most efficient for them. So that's going to be my interpretation and my take on the Gene Key 43, Human Design Gate 43, the Scorpio archetype. If you have this, I do recommend watching your programming partner as well, which is Gate 23, and Gene Key 23, that's the Taurus archetype. That's going to be coming out soon. And yes, also if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below if you haven't, and leave comments below about your experiences with this archetype if you have it. I do readings, a combo of astrology, human design, and the gene keys. You can check that out on my website as well. So that's it. See you soon, beautiful souls. Have a beautiful day. Bye.